Just give me a countdown when you're ready.
Just turned it on.
When Hyde turns his camera on, I'm going to turn my camera off. So the minute I see Hyde, I'm off. Okay? Hold on.
Yeah.
Well, the hiatus is over, the baby is born, and free agency is right around the corner. So X's and Omar is back. On Monday, NFL teams will begin the legal tampering period as opposed to the illegal tampering period with agents talking to teams about their prospective clients and potentially shaking them down. While the financial landscape of the NFL isn't exactly set in stone heading into March 11th, start of the league's new year, the offseason is full speed ahead. I am Omar Kelly, Sentinel columnist. This is my colleague, Dave Hyde. You're not seeing him right now because we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. But after the week of making a couple of roster moves, the Dolphins have roughly $32 million in cap space and need to add 29 players between now and July to be ready for training camp. Miami has a history of balling out during free agency under owner Steve Ross. Last year, the Dolphins spent a franchise record $143 million in guaranteed money to make over the 2019 5-11 record. Turned out to be a 10-6 season. Will Miami be as aggressive as they were last offseason? And can they, Dave Hyde?
Well, I think they can. Well, they can't financially, but they can spotlight certain positions, and we expect them to, wide receiver and all that. So I guess they're going to be aggressive, and you saw them clear out Kyle Van Noy, and we can talk about that contract, what it meant, the signing. And I expect them, everybody was surprised by it, but when you went back and looked at the contract, it was a series of one-year contracts. 4 years, $51 million, but each one had an off-ramp. Very smartly done by the Dolphins. They decided Kyle Van Noy wasn't worth 13 plus million that he would have gotten this year. So they turned it into a one-year contract. I think that's what they want to do moving ahead. We'll see if they can pull that off with the players they want. But I think that is a strategy the team would like to use. Whether it's practical or not, I'm not really sure. Anyways, Matt has our first question. What are the chances the Dolphins have learned that free agency is for Band-Aids and stopgaps, Omar?
I think there's zero chance. I think they're aware what free agency is used for. I think they're aware that oftentimes you overpay in free agency. They drastically overpaid for Kyle Van Noy. He was not worth $15 million last season. I think they came to terms with that. But as you wisely put out, the contract was structured so it's a series of off-ramps. But, as I always preach to people who are Dolphin fans or NFL fans in general, one, the salary cap isn't real. Two, dead money is monopoly money. It does not exist. And you're not paying it to anybody. And three, only count the guaranteed money in contracts. So anytime I look at a contract, I could tell you exactly what the contract is and the length of it by detailing through the contract and looking at the guaranteed money. Kyle Van Noy, they put an option year in it in his second year just so that they can say, if he's worth $12.5 million, we'll keep him. If he's not worth $12.5 million and we can get something else for him, they'll cut him. And that's the situation which they did. They looked at it and said, hey, Kyle Van Noy, we can get a better player or maybe two players for the cap space that it creates. And, ultimately they saved $12.5 million, built their cap space up to $32 million. It's a respectable amount, not a great amount. And I think they can make moves with that. And truthfully speaking, he wasn't worth the money, and you have to evaluate everybody on the roster, determine whether or not they're worth the money. I think they do a good enough job doing that. But what Steve Ross likes to do is Steve Ross likes to get in the game when it's check writing time. And right now it's check writing time. And Chris Greer's history is he's going to swing big for the players who should be franchise players.
Yeah, and Omar, the other interesting component of this free agency to me is the top first five teams with money to spend are from the AFC. And two of the five, the Jets at number 2, the Patriots at number 4, are in the AFC East. So a year ago, the Dolphins were the free agent. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, okay, to have all that money. And this gets back to the question, have they learned their lesson of free agency? Look at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay signed Tom Brady last year, obviously the signing of the offseason. But the rest of their free agent deals were one-year contracts. Okay, that's how teams get to the Super Bowl, or they're in contention. They don't need they're not going out and getting huge money deals because their draft and previous decisions really are the foundation of the roster. So have they learned? I don't know. What is there to learn? What is there to learn? They need players. They need receivers. They need playmakers on offense. And the question really is a philosophical one. Are they going to swing big for the fences, or are they going to use fill gaps and try to get several players for lesser deals? Okay, Dolphin Spence wants to know, does the release of Kyle Van Noy foreshadow that the Dolphins will draft a linebacker in the first round with the number 18 pick? Omar?
I don't know if it means that they're going to draft a linebacker. I think it means that there's potential that they're going to draft a pass rusher. If you really understand what Kyle Van Noy's role was in this defense, he was really the Swiss Army knife. He can do all things, but primarily he was the pass rusher. He was the pass rusher that attacked the right tackle, supposed to use swim moves and hand battling to get to the quarterback. Kyle Van Noy had 6 sacks last season, and the bulk of those sacks were against the Cincinnati Bengals, the New York Jets, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's not really that impressive to me. And he was not an impactful pass rusher. And I think that they look at it as they can go get an impactful pass rusher. And you can have an Andrew Van Ginkel and a Shaq Lawson, and even consider re-signing Vince Beagle, come in and kind of fill that role. Or you can go get a Greg Rousseau in the first round, or another pass rusher, the kid from Texas, to sort of try to ease that loss. There are tons of free agent pass rushers and edge setters and linebackers, and the purges haven't even started right now. So I think you've got a ton of opportunity and options to get a player equivalent to Kyle Van Noy. You're just not going to have to pay him $12.5 million.
Yeah, and if we're talking linebacker at 18, we're really talking the middle linebacker. Okay, and that's what they need. That's what they needed. And as Omar said, the interesting thing, and you brought up a name that I was thinking about in the aftermath of Kyle Van Noy's release, Vince Beagle. Hurt last year, he showed signs of being a productive player the year before. And so where's he at? Where's Van Ginkel? We saw some flashes that, okay, maybe he could be that player. So you understand what the Dolphins did there. The question is how they fill in some holes without Van Noy there. So, okay, TJ Frost asks, would Miami be foolish to expect a similar trade-off for Xavier Howard that Jacksonville got for Jalen Ramsey, considering his age, injury, and production?
I think it's unrealistic to expect a similar trade offer for Jalen Ramsey, just from the standpoint the Rams generally don't keep their first round pick, and to be honest with you, I'm not interested in a low first round pick for Xavier Howard. Maybe a first and a third, a mid first and a third. I think Xavier Howard is an impactful player. He's clearly the best player on your team, might be the best player in the AFC East. Why should I really trade him if I'm certain that he's going to have the same level of productivity? And the only thing that would make me concerned about that level of productivity is his knee issue in his past. Xavier believes that it is. He had a unorthodox procedure to basically come back from the knee procedure, from the knee injury and the knee issues that he had. It clearly worked. And the question is, will it hold up? And he's confident it will. But now, the contract situation and I'm not even going to say off the field stuff, the miscellaneous stuff. Does he have to get that stuff cleaned up and addressed? Absolutely. But if you get the same level of play that you got from Xavier last year, you're talking about a top 10 player in the NFL. So I'm not trading that for a low first round pick.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Now, the Rams gave up. Jacksonville got 2 first rounders and 20 and 21 and a 4th rounder. So, I mean, they gave up a lot. Okay. Now, the question is, at some point, the Dolphins have to win. I think we're there. I think we're to the point now where, okay, this rebuilding is fun and nice, but and you can't keep trading your good players.
They cannot.
They've had 3 Pro Bowl players in the past few years, or would be Pro Bowl players for them if they stayed. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Laramie Tunsil, Xavier Howard. Okay, and so you can't just keep trading these guys for draft picks. Okay, at some point you're judged by wins, and like I said, I think that's where we are right now.
Camera off. So the purges have already begun in the NFL, despite the start of free agency coming next week, but it hasn't been moving quickly. It's been a slow trickle out, and I think as the week progresses, we're going to see a lot more transactions. J.J. Watt left Houston, signed with the Arizona Cardinals. We just saw Dak Prescott set a new record with $66 million in signing bonus, the largest signing bonus ever given to an NFL player, with his whopping $120 million contract. But the Dolphins have been active. Don't overlook the Miami Dolphins. They signed All-Pro kicker Jason Sanders to a respectable deal, making him one of the NFL's highest-paid kickers. And they're slated to release Kyle Van Noy and might throw a few players like Jakeem Grant, Albert Wilson, Alan Hearns on the pile of purge contracts. That's still to be determined. But the Dolphins also made an interesting move this week. They traded for former Georgia right tackle Isaiah Wilson, who the Tennessee Titans selected in the first round last year and designated as a bust after one season, which featured 2 off-field incidents that got the individual arrested. The Titans are paying the Dolphins to take the contract off their hands. Does that make sense for Miami, Dave?
Yeah, Omar, I think it makes sense in the regard that they gave up nothing, a swap of 7th round picks. It's interesting, no other team wanted to give even that much for a guy who was taken in the first round last year. That tells you the extent of his lack of discipline, commitment, legal problems. You can go down the line. He had a DUI. So the question is, who is Isaiah Wilson? Does he want to play in the NFL? To that end, there is a connection here. Brian Flores came out of the projects of Brooklyn. So did Isaiah Wilson. Brian Flores went to Poly Prep Country Day School, a very lavish private school that he went to on a scholarship. So did Isaiah Wilson. So you can see that Brian Flores obviously is betting on himself to have a connection with Isaiah Wilson and, in some sense, save the kid. Every coach I've ever been around, even in the pros, has this idea that they can help save people, especially they want to save players with talent. So we'll see. If they get him for nothing, if he's just a backup tackle even, that's a steal. Okay, so you get the thinking here. Now, where's Isaiah Wilson at? Where's his commitment? The fact that Tennessee, after 1 year, he played 4 snaps for them, and the GM who took him said, we don't want anything to do with him. Again, that tells you the the extent of his issues. But from the Dolphins standpoint, I get it. You're trying to build depth and quality, and you have this tenuous connection, but a connection nonetheless with them, and so it's a chance worth taking. Whether it's a chance you're going to bet turns out in a good way, that's a different matter.
Yeah,
Okay.
to me, it's interesting about this whole situation with Isaiah Wilson, Dave. Um, he, I remember doing the draft evaluation of the prospects last year, and I did like Isaiah Wilson a lot better than Austin Jackson. Was just a personal preference. He's a road grader. He's physical. He's mauling. He's not that great of a pass protector, which probably makes some issues for him at right tackle. But he's a big physical lineman. So is Solomon Kinley. And you know, that fits when you want a physical run game, he can work. So even just as a backup, it makes sense. Looking at it from a contractual standpoint, 3 years at $5.3 million, not every year. That's just 3 years, $5.3 million, unless that's a pretty decent deal. He's on the books this year, $1.136 million. He's $2.6 million in terms of a cap hit. And what most people don't understand is contractually, because he's been arrested, he voided the guaranteed money of his contract. So the Tennessee Titans could have just waived him and avoided all the guaranteed money, even though they paid the guaranteed money already. What the Dolphins did is subsequently swap seventh-round picks to avoid this young man being on the waiver wire and somebody else pick him up. So you're just swapping seventh-round picks to give yourself a chance at a good player, and hopefully you can reach him. But is Miami the environment that you want to put a guy who's having some social challenges in? No, absolutely not. But who knows? For a swap of a seventh-round picks, who cares?
Yeah. Okay, Omar. Next question's Nick Dorsey has it, and it says, if you can have Miami sign one upper echelon free agent of your choice, who you got?
Woo! That's one of my favorite questions for this show. Unfortunately, the guy that was on my list, which was Levante David, he just re-signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Dolphins were definitely interested, but he re-signed 3 years, $24 million, $20 million of a guaranteed. Excellent deal. I push for more players. Forget all that APY. It doesn't exist. The guaranteed money is all that matters, and Levante David is going to get $20 million over the next 2 years. Who knows what that third year is going to entail? But the guy to me that I would be interested in is I want a pass rusher. I want an impactful player who can set the edge and get around the corner and threaten the quarterback. To me, Von Miller is that guy. And while he has not been released by the Denver Broncos, and while he's at